Hello, this is Shmuel Moshe, and you are listening to the Weekly Parashahcast, a weekly Torah portion podcast where I read the weekly Torah portion and then give my own interpretation of the text and what I think it all means. As always, I remind everybody I am not a professional Torah scholar, just somebody who wanted to study Torah. This week's Torah portion falls on the Shabbat of the 22nd of Adar 1, or Adar Aleph, 5784, March 2nd, 2024. It is Parshat Tisa, which translates to When You Take. Starting at chapter 30, verse 11 of Exodus, let's jump right in. You could follow along in English at chabad.org. Exodus chapter 30, verse 11. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "When you take the sum of the children of Israel according to their numbers, let each one give to the Lord an atonement for his soul when they are counted. Then there will be no plague among them when they are counted. This they shall give, everyone who goes through the counting, half a shekel according to the holy shekel. 20 gerahs equal 1 shekel. Half of a shekel shall be an offering to the Lord. Everyone who goes through the counting from the age of 20 and upward shall give an offering to the Lord. The rich shall give no more, and the poor shall give no less than half a shekel, with which to give the offering to the Lord to atone for your souls. You shall take the silver of the atonements from the children of Israel and use it for the work of the tent of meeting. It shall be a remembrance for the children of Israel before the Lord to atone for your souls." The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "You shall make a washstand of copper, and its base of copper for washing, and you shall place it between the tent of meeting and the altar, and you shall put water therein. Aaron and his sons shall wash their hands and feet from it. When they enter the tent of meeting, they shall wash with water, so that they will not die. Or when they approach the altar to serve, to make a fire offering rise up in smoke to the Lord, they shall wash their hands and feet, so that they will not die. This shall be for them a perpetual statute, for him and for his descendants, for their generations." The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "And you take for yourself spices of the finest sort, of pure myrrh 500 shekel weights, of fragrant cinnamon half of it 250 shekel weights, of fragrant cane 250 shekel weights, and of cassia 500 shekel weights according to the holy shekel, and 1 hin of olive oil. You shall make this into an oil of holy ointment, a perfumed compound, according to the art of a perfumer. It shall be an oil of holy anointment, and you shall anoint with it the tent of meeting and the ark of testimony, the table and all its implements, the menorah and its implements, the altar of incense, the altar of the burnt offering and all its implements, the washstand and its base. And you shall sanctify them, so that they become a holy of holies. Whatever touches them shall become holy. And with it you shall anoint Aaron and his sons, and sanctify them to serve me as Kohanim. And to the children of Israel you shall speak, This shall be oil of holy anointment to me for your generations. It shall not be poured upon human flesh, and according to its formula you shall not make anything like it. It is holy, it shall be holy to you. Any person who compounds anything like it, or puts any of it on an alien, shall be cut off from his people." And the Lord said to Moses, "Take for yourself aromatics, namely balsam sap, onkia, and galbanum, aromatics and pure frankincense. They shall be of equal weight, and you shall make it into incense, a compound according to the art of the perfumer, well blended, pure, holy. And you shall crush some of it very finely. And you shall set some of it before the testimony in the tent of meeting, where I will arrange meetings with you. It shall be to you a holy of holies. And the incense that you make you shall not make for yourselves according to its formula. It shall be holy to you for the Lord. Any person who makes anything like it, to smell its fragrance, shall be cut off from his people." Chapter 31, verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "See, I have called by name Bezalel the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. And I have imbued him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, with insight, with knowledge, and with talent, for all manner of craftsmanship, to do master weaving, to work with gold, with silver, and with copper, with the craft of stones for setting, and with the craft of wood, to do every manner of work. And behold, with him I have placed Oholiab the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, and all the wise-hearted into whose hearts I have instilled wisdom, and they shall make everything I have commanded you. The tent of meeting and the ark for the testimony, as well as the cover that shall be upon it, all the implements of the tent, the table and its implements, the pure menorah and all its implements, the altar of incense, the altar for the burnt offering and all its implements, the washstand and its base, the meshwork garments, the holy garments for Aaron the Kohen, the garments of his sons in which to serve as Kohanim, the anointing oil, and the incense for the holy, in complete accordance with everything I have commanded, use they shall do. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, And you speak to the children of Israel and say, Only keep my Sabbaths, for it is a sign between me and you for your generations, to know that I, the Lord, make you holy. Therefore keep the Sabbath, for it is a sacred thing for you. Those who desecrate it shall be put to death, for whoever performs work on it, that soul will be cut off from the midst of its people. 6 days work may be done, but on the 7th day is a Sabbath of complete rest. Holy to the Lord, whoever performs work on the Sabbath day shall be put to death. Thus shall the children of Israel observe the Sabbath, to make the Sabbath throughout their generations as an everlasting covenant between me and the children of Israel. It is forever a sign that in 6 days the Lord created the heaven and the earth, and on the 7th day he ceased and rested. All right, so that is definitely one of the longest first portions we have ever had on this show, but let's go ahead and quickly summarize. So first up, the beginning of this first portion talks about the redemption of a half shekel from each of the grown men of the congregation. So anybody who's aged 20 and up was to give half a shekel as their, it calls it, they shall be redeemed by this. So think of it like this is the price of your freedom for being brought out of Egypt or for being, of the congregation. That's what you have to pay in, no matter whether you're rich or poor, half a shekel to everyone. And that money is going to be used to fund the creation of the necessary things. But you shall use it for the work of the tent of meeting, right? So it's going to be used both as a resource and also, I think, just to fund it. And then we hear of additional things, washstand of copper, as well as additional items that will be made so that, Aaron and his sons will be able to wash at that washstand. And that way it'll purify them so they don't get killed. And then they're also going to be able to make their offerings and so on and so on. And these are the general ideas. So now Moses is also told how the necessary incense and anointing oils shall be made with what particular composition. So we get the exact measurements of each item using shekels as the standard of weight. So 1 shekel would be on, let's say, 1/2 of the scale, or a weighing stone, right? This was often how they would do measurements back in those days, is they would have stones or objects that they'd carry in their pocket, and they would basically say, like, this stone weighs, let's say, 1 kilogram. This is a 1 kilogram stone. And then they would put that up against something, and you could measure out weights based on the weights that you carried with you. Like, this is a 1 kilogram weight, therefore whatever's on the other side will even it out to make them balanced on both sides. So in any case, that's how we're using the shekel as the unit of measurement here. So they use shekels to determine the weight of the different items used for the oil and the incense. It is made very clear that the oil and the incense are not to be replicated or used for any outside sort of behaviors, right? So these are going to exclusively be made for the purpose of anointing, and they're going to exclusively anoint at these places Moses is instructed to use them. You're not supposed to use them outside of their designated purpose, or else you're seriously in trouble. You're going to be cut off from the people. Don't do it. This is for the specific tasks that they've been assigned. Even if you want to smell the lovely incense, anybody has been told, right, we're hearing this is the composition, this is the exact measurement. Now I'm telling you this, but if you're some random guy hearing this, don't you dare try to create that smell for yourself. It is not allowed. So don't even try to recreate it. Forbidden. In any case, it's written here so that we know how to do it, especially for fulfilling the specific commandments associated with, hey, do this in the Holy of Holies, but don't do it anywhere else. So in modern day, if somebody wanted to observe what's being told here, they would be able to do just that without violating it. They know the exact measurements, and nobody else would be allowed to do it. Now, outside of that, we also hear about the craftsmen, right? So we heard this shall be the work of a master weaver and so on. Now we know who those master craftsmen are. So we have the man is named Bezalel, son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. He's been given basically the title of super master crafter that comes with all of the wisdom for all manner of crafting. So everything. He knows how to do it all. And then he's also been given Oholiab, the son of Ahisamach of the tribe of Dan, as well as all the wise-hearted, into whose hearts I have instilled wisdom, and they shall make everything I commanded you. So we have Bezalel as sort of the master of the crafting group here, and then Oholiab as well as other members of the tribe of Dan and people who have been given wisdom. So those are just two of the collective, we can call them almost like the crafting guild of the ancient Israelites. So they're all going to work together and build the things that Moses has been commanded to have built. Now we know who the master crafters are and their cohort that are going to be working with them. Everything from the garments to the tents to all the different metal and things that need to be fashioned, now you know. The last step is the Sabbath, talking about the importance of the Sabbath and that it must be kept, it must be honored. Anybody who breaks the Sabbath, death penalty. For whoever does it, that soul will be cut off from the midst of its people. Now, interestingly, right, so that seems like redundant. So you're telling me by being put to death and their soul will be cut off? Well, no. What I think is, and I've heard this explanation for death penalty actions, basically, your life, the death that you are given, is used to atone for the sake of your soul. So in other words, instead of your soul being cut off, your life is given in exchange, which saves your soul from being cut off. So if you commit a sin that cuts your soul off from the people, death is an immediate way to essentially redeem your soul by you die in exchange, and through the sacrifice of my own life, let my soul be redeemed, and then you'll be redeemed by the loss of your life in exchange for your soul. I've heard it described like this: it's better to kill someone's life than to kill their soul. So in other words, it's better to murder somebody than to spiritually kill them and separate them from their spiritual heritage. So, the idea is pretty much that, between the maintenance of life and death versus being killed or having your soul cut off. It's better to die and preserve your soul. That's the implication here. Okay, moving on to the second portion. Chapter 31, verse 18. When he had finished speaking with him on Mount Sinai, he gave Moses the 2 tablets of the testimony, stone tablets written with the finger of God. Chapter 32, verse 1. When the people saw that Moses was late in coming down from the mountain, the people gathered against Aaron, and they said to him, "Come on, make us gods that will go before us, because this man Moses, who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we don't know what has become of him." Aaron said to them, "Remove the golden earrings that are on the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." And all the people stripped themselves of the golden earrings that were on their ears and brought them to Aaron. He took them from their hands, fashioned it with an engraving tool, and made it into a molten calf, upon which they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who have brought you up from the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar in front of it, and Aaron proclaimed and said, "Tomorrow shall be a festival to the Lord." On the next day they arose early and offered up burnt offerings and brought peace offerings, and the people sat down to eat and to drink, and they got up to make merry. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go, descend, for your people that you have brought up from the land of Egypt have acted corruptly. They have quickly turned away from the path that I have commanded them. They have made themselves a molten calf, and they have prostrated themselves before it, slaughtered sacrifices to it, and said, 'These are your gods, O Israel, who have brought you up from the land of Egypt.' And the Lord said to Moses, 'I have seen this people, and behold, they are a stiff-necked people. Now leave me alone, and my anger will be kindled against them, so that I will annihilate them, and I will make you into a great nation.' Moses pleaded before the Lord his God, and said, 'Why, O Lord, should your anger be kindled against your people, whom you have brought up from the land of Egypt with great power and with a strong hand? Why should the Egyptians say, "He brought them out with evil intent to kill them in the mountains and to annihilate them from upon the face of the earth"? Retreat from the heat of your anger, and reconsider the evil intended for your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your very self, and to whom you said, "I will multiply your seed like the stars of the heavens, and all this land which I said that I would give to your seed. They shall keep it as their possession forever." The Lord then reconsidered the evil he had said he would do to his people. Now Moses turned and went down from the mountain, bearing the 2 tablets of testimony in his hand, tablets inscribed from both their sides, one on one side and one on the other side they were inscribed. Now the tablets were God's work, and the inscription was God's inscription engraved on the tablets. When Joshua heard the voice of the people and their shouting, he said to Moses, "There is a voice of battle in the camp." But Moses said, "It is neither a voice shouting victory nor a voice shouting defeat. A voice of blasphemy I hear." Now it came to pass when he drew closer to the camp and saw the calf and the dances, that Moses' anger was kindled, and he flung the tablets from his hand, shattering them at the foot of the mountain. Then he took the calf they had made, burned it in fire, ground it to fine powder, scattered it upon the surface of the water, and gave it to the children of Israel to drink. Moses said to Aaron, "What did this people do to you, that you brought such a grave sin upon them?" Aaron replied, "Let not my lord's anger grow hot. You know the people, that they are disposed toward evil. They said to me, 'Make us gods who will go before us, because this man Moses, who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him.' I said to them, 'Who has gold?' So they took it off and gave it to me. I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf." And Moses saw the people, that they were exposed, for Aaron had exposed them to be disgraced before their adversaries. So Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, "Whoever is for the Lord, let him come to me." And all the sons of Levi gathered around him. He said to them, "So said the Lord, the God of Israel, let every man place his sword upon his thigh, and pass back and forth from one gate to the other in the camp, and let every man kill his brother, every man his friend, every man his kinsman." The sons of Levi did according to Moses' word. On that day, some 3,000 men fell from among the people. And Moses said, "Initiate yourselves today for the Lord, for each man with his son and with his brother, so that he may bestow a blessing upon you this day." It came to pass on the next day that Moses said to the people, "You have committed a grave sin, and now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I will obtain atonement for your sin." And Moses returned to the Lord and said, "Please, this people has committed a grave sin. They have made themselves a god of gold. And now, if you forgive their sin, but if not, erase me now from your book which you have written." And the Lord said to Moses, "Whoever has sinned against me, him I will erase from my book. And now go, lead the people to the place of which I have spoken to you. Behold, my angel will go before you. But on the day I make accounting of sins upon them, I will bring their sin to account against them." Then the Lord struck the people with a plague, because they had made the calf that Aaron had made. Chapter 33. Verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Go, ascend from here, you and the people you have brought up from the land of Egypt, to the land that I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I will send an angel before you, and I will drive out the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey, because I will not go up in your midst, since you are a stiff-necked people, lest I destroy you along the way." When the people heard this bad news, they mourned, and no one put on his finery. And the Lord said to Moses, "Say to the children of Israel, you are a stiff-necked people. If I go up into your midst for one moment, I will destroy you. But now leave off your finery, and I will know what to do to you." So the children of Israel divested themselves of their finery from Mount Horeb. And Moses took the tent and pitched it for himself outside the camp, distancing it from the camp, and he called it the tent of meeting. And it would be anyone seeking the Lord would go out to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. And it would be that when Moses would go out to the tent, all the people would rise and stand, each one at the entrance of his tent, and they would gaze after Moses until he went into the tent. And it would be that when Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and he would speak with Moses. When all the people would see the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise and prostrate themselves, each one at the entrance of his tent. Then the Lord would speak to Moses face to face, as a man would speak to his companion, and he would return to the camp. But his attendant Joshua, the son of Nun, a lad, would not depart from the tent. Okay, another long portion. Let's break this one down. So, this is the famous sin of the golden calf, starting with chapter 31, verse 18. So, Moses receives the 2 tablets, written with the finger of God. While that's happening, Moses is delaying, right? So he's gone up, and he said he's going to be up on the mountain for 40 days, and it's now been more than 40 days. And an explanation for this is, I'm going to be up there for 40 days. Don't forget, I still have to come down afterward, right? So that would cause him to be a little bit longer. In other words, I'm going to go to my destination, wait there for 40 days, and come back. So the extra time of travel is probably what caused him to delay. In any case, it says, the people gathered against Aaron. So first, when I read this earlier, I remember thinking that, man, this is all Aaron's fault. But then I read this line, the people gathered against Aaron. So in other words, they were threatening him. They forced his hand in a way. They basically were threatening to kill him. So he did this on threat of death, which is still questionable, but we'll get into this a little bit later because it's almost like a shrewd tactic. So they say, come on, make us gods that will go before us, because this man Moses, who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we don't know what has become of him. So Aaron doesn't even object to it, right? He just says, okay, give me your golden earrings and all the golden things that your families have, give them to me, all right? And he takes them and he engraves it and makes a molten calf, upon which they said, these are your gods, O Israel, who have brought you up from the land of Egypt. So when Aaron saw this, he built an altar in front of it, and Aaron proclaimed and said, tomorrow shall be a festival to the Lord. So this is where the trickery happens. This is where Aaron pulled a fast one. Basically, these people, it says like they're the ones saying, Israel, these are the gods who have brought you out. So in other words, they're saying it wasn't the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's these things brought you out. Aaron did not say it. Aaron is the one who crafted this molten image of a cow. But he created it, but didn't worship it. He just made a golden calf, and they made it into a god. Then he builds an altar, and he says, this altar will be used for a festival to the Lord. Again, he is referring to the God of Israel. These non-worshippers then say, we shall consecrate the other gods, the idol god, right? So Aaron created a situation where he basically made it easy for them to commit this grave sin. Why did he do this? Well, for one, they did threaten him, so he appeased them, but he also knows the power of God, and he knows God's temperament. So he knows, okay, very well, I'm going to go ahead and lay this out so that you can commit the sin. Basically, this was Aaron's clever way of taking out the trash. He let them walk straight into sin rather than stopping them because, okay, if that's how you want to be, fine. Go right ahead. I'll give you what you want. And don't complain about it later. But he didn't even say that. Aaron acted completely complicit in their requests, all for the sake of exposing them. Now, this is the difference, right? Meanwhile, so on the ground, Aaron is doing this, and they are now sinning with Aaron's basically setting the trap. Such was the behavior of the Kohen, Aaron. Meanwhile, on top of the mountain, Moses is with God, and he has this incredible moment going on, and suddenly the Lord gets mad, and he says, go down there and deal with your people because they just sinned with a golden calf. They just did the thing I told them not to do. Go down there and deal with it. I'm so mad. I'm so mad. You know what? I'm going to destroy them. I'm going to destroy all of them, and I'm going to turn you, Moses, you are going to become the people. Forget the people of Israel. They're going to become the people of Moses, because these people down there, forget them. But Moses, in his wisdom, compassion, and love for his people, he says, my Lord, why would you do this? If you destroy them, all the other people, especially the Egyptians, are going to say, oh, look how that God took them out of Egypt just to kill them in the wilderness. Instead, have mercy. Have mercy on them. Please. And if you don't, take me out of the book. So not only does he say, if you're going to do this, it's going to ruin your reputation. But he says, if you do this to the people of Israel, I don't want to be known as your prophet. I will not be remembered for this. Take my name out of the book. And so that really speaks to the beauty of Moses and his love for the people, but it also speaks differently, right? And that second part of him pleading to take him out of the book if he doesn't go back on his word, I got a little out of order here. So first, he stops God from killing them all. He goes down. He sees Joshua. Joshua's like, oh man, Moses, there's cry and battle at the camp. Something's going wrong. A voice of defeat. Or there's a battle, right? So Joshua doesn't even know, but Moses says, no, Joshua, it's not battle. it's not victory or defeat. It's blasphemy. So they go down there, he sees what's going on, and now that he sees what God saw, now Moses is angry, right? Because at the time, he heard from God, those people have done this horrible thing, but he didn't see it with his own eyes, right? So he's just like, oh, please, my Lord, forgive them. This is also the mercy that Moses did not see it firsthand when he made this first plea. Now that he sees it firsthand, now he's just as mad. And he says to Aaron, what did this people do to you that you brought such a grave sin upon them? And Aaron's like, oh no, don't be mad at me. You know how they are. You know how that those people are so disposed toward evil. They said to me, make us gods who will go before us. Because they don't know what happened to you. So I said, who's got gold? And I took the gold. They gave it to me. I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf. So here we have Aaron lying to Moses. That's not what happened. That is not what happened. It said very clearly, Aaron engraved this thing himself, but he's telling his brother, I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf, as if it happened spontaneously. But meanwhile, Moses is hearing this, but he's seeing what happened. The people have been exposed and disgraced before their average. So in other words, because Aaron was complying with their demands, even on pain of death, Moses is essentially the kind of man, we see such a difference in quality here. And this is really where we see why he is called the humble one and what makes him so special, okay? Let's rewind a lot. Let's have a big rewind here, okay? So, well, actually, I'll get into this after we get into the resolution of this. So first, Aaron tells him, oh yeah, I did the thing. I threw it in the fire and out came this calf. No, wrong. You actually made it like that. You engraved a molten calf, all right, Aaron? So you're lying to Moses, but okay. Moses does not confront him on this, but nonetheless, he says, now that because of this, before their enemies, they are disgraced. This holy people is now disgraced in the eyes of their enemies. So he has to make a scene now. He has to make a declaration of sorts. So he calls all those who are for the Lord, come to me. And it says the sons of Levi gathered around him. So his tribesmen come to him. So said the Lord, the God of Israel, let every man place his sword upon his thigh and pass back and forth from the gate to one another in the camp. Let every man kill his brother, every man his friend, every man his kinsman. And so what this means is he's basically telling them, take your swords and slaughter everybody in the camp from here to the entrance and back. Okay? Kill them all. Doesn't matter if they're your friend, your kinsman, your whatever. Kill them all. You know, I'm from Eretz Israel and I say kill them all. But no, so the idea is he sends them and he tells them, go and kill every one of them. And then they come back. And so also Moses made them drink the ground up. That's the other thing Moses did, was like he ground it up, burned it, whatever, and made them drink the water of it. So this may have rendered them weak and unable to resist or something. But Moses essentially, while Aaron did the deed of allowing them to sin, Moses is now doing the deed of having to put them down. And so it's a very ugly situation, but also, it's basically like that. And now, by doing this and by killing all the people who committed the sin, right? Because it says in the camp, the entirety of the congregation is not in the camp. Therefore, only the people who showed up to commit the sin of the calf are the ones that get killed here. So that's who gets wiped out, some 3,000 people. Now, Moses he comes forward and he says to the Lord, he basically says it, this people has committed a grave sin. They've made themselves a god of gold. And now if you forgive their sin, but if not, erase me now from your book which you have written. And so finally, he basically says, please forgive them or else erase me too. And Lord is so touched in his benevolence, he says, whoever has sinned against me, him I will erase from my book. Now go, lead the people to the place of which I have spoken to you. Behold, my angel will go before you, but on the day I make an accounting of sins, I will bring their sin to account against them. And the Lord struck them with a plague because they made the calf that Aaron had made. Right? So, all in all, let's recap on this. The difference between Aaron and Moses. Back when Moses first encountered God at the burning bush, his words were very simple. I am heavy of tongue. Surely my brother Aaron can do it. My brother Aaron's a better speaker than me. My brother Aaron would be much better than me. And God has an objection. He says, you think you know better than me? I'm picking you, but very well. I'll allow you to have your brother do it. This may be, in my opinion, the penalty for what Moses had requested all the way back then. If Moses had instead not requested or been so humble as to say, why me? Why not someone else? God would not have involved Aaron. And now we see one of Aaron's greatest flaws in practice. Moses was not the type to capitulate. But look and behold what the people have done, that they drove Aaron to say, okay, I'll go ahead and set up your own demise. Moses has to clean up that mess. Boy, that never would have happened if he didn't have Aaron put in that position, would it? But that's what he wanted. This is the consequence. And we'll see that Aaron does seem to be a bit of a pushover in general. So Moses over time becomes more convicted, more militant in his devotion, right? And Aaron, we give him this amazing title, but look, the fact that he did it at all is unfathomable. It's honestly incredibly hard to believe that he ever capitulated, but it seems like his reason was he was scared for his life. So rather than die, okay, I'll give you what you want. Don't complain later. I'm doing it, and I'm setting you up to fall because you want to fall so bad. In any case, they're going to pay for that later, and they take the consequences. Now, God is going to be sending his angel ahead to take care of things and make sure to drive out the people from the existing people that are living in the land. He's going to drive them out by sending an angel ahead of them. So things are going to be happening while they're en route to the land of Israel. That's going to result in the native tribes that are there currently, the ones that were there back then too, they're going to gradually be chased away by the angels, right? So back in the day, they were around, but he's going to clear them out. But the people of Israel are also going to give up their finery because basically now God is so mad after they committed this grave sin. He says, because of that, I'm not going to dwell amongst your midst anymore. No more. It used to be that the Spirit of God would be among the people. But now, because of their sin, he won't do it because, you know what? I already know. You guys are going to make me so mad that I'm going to destroy you. So I can't stay around you. I got to be away from you. Moses now meets with God at the tent of meeting outside of the boundaries of the camp. And so that's how we know it. And again, earlier we talked about like outside of the camp, right? So outside of the congregation or even the main camp, whatever it is, earlier I talked about maybe like only the people at the camp were the sinners. Maybe it's just because the ones who drank the golden water were like clearly, you could tell they were the infected ones, and that's how they got distinguished from who should be killed and who shouldn't. But anyway, from now on, when people need to talk to God, they come to Moses. Moses goes to the tent of meeting. He meets with God. He comes back with the answers. Then when it's done, he returns to camp. But Joshua stays at the tent. So think of Joshua as kind of being like the guardian of the tent, while Moses is going to and from the tent to receive these different things. Now, as it happens, they can see the pillar of cloud come down, and they can all see and start bowing before the Lord. But then it says here, the Lord would speak to Moses face to face as a man would speak to his companion. And so, that's really powerful. After the events of Sinai, Moses and God have a human face-to-face interaction. He talks to Moses on that level. They are that tight. Nonetheless, that's the end of the second portion. Woo-wee! Third portion. Verse 12 of chapter 33. Moses said to the Lord, "Look, you say to me, bring this people up, but you have not informed me whom you will send with me. And you said, I have known you by name, and you have also found favor in my eyes. And if I have indeed found favor in your eyes, pray let me know your ways so that I may know you, so that I may find favor in your eyes, and consider that this nation is your people." So he said, "My presence will go, and I will give you rest." And he said to him, "If your presence does not go with us, do not take us up from here. For how will it be known that I have found favor in your eyes, and I in your people? Is it not in that you will go with us? Then I and your people will be distinguished from every other nation on the face of the earth." Thus ends the third portion. Whew, short one. So this hinges more on, Moses and God are having a discussion, And basically now God has said, I'm no longer going to dwell among those people because look what they did. But Moses is now once again coming cleverly to debate with God. And he says, my Lord, we need you to come with us. Otherwise, how am I going to know that we're doing the right thing? And how are we going to know that we found favor in your eyes unless you tell me everything that you really feel? And without you being with us, how are people going to know that we're special? So, see, you must come with us. Once again, we get back to the point of Moses being such a powerful speaker, right? Before, again, Aaron was basically, okay, fine, I'll do what they say, and I'm going to set them up to fail. Whereas Moses, he's the one who's, all right, Aaron is just a man. He's afraid of his own people. They came against him, so he capitulated. Moses is talking to God, the most powerful being in existence and non-existence, outside of existence. And he still has the courage to tell him no, and to object with him, and argue with him, and try to convince him. That is the level of Moses. Look how small Aaron is compared to that man. Look how much smaller he is in holiness and conviction and courage than Moses. Not to speak ill of Aaron, but this is really the last time we saw somebody, and as far as I can recall, the last person to argue and negotiate and haggle with God like this was Abraham. Avraham Avinu, okay? The father of all the Jewish people was the last person to talk on this level and haggle with God on terms and conditions, and actually live to tell the tale, because he was blessed, but also he had the makings of that in him. Wow, Moses is incredible, but so humble. Fourth portion, chapter 33, verse 17. And the Lord said to Moses, even this thing that you have spoken I will do, for you have found favor in my eyes, and I have known you by name. And he said, show me now your glory. He said, I will let all my goodness pass before you. I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you, and I will favor you when I wish to favor you, and I will have compassion when I wish to have compassion. And he said, you will not be able to see my face, for man shall not see me and live. And the Lord said, behold, there is a place with me, and you shall stand on the rock. And it shall be that when my glory passes by, I will place you in the cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand, and you will see my back, but my face shall not be seen. So the fourth portion is essentially like this. Everything that God has tested Moses with, everything Moses has experienced, the result is, you, Moses, have found favor in my eyes, so I will do all of it. Everything you've asked of me, I will do, because I have found favor. You have found favor in my eyes, and I know you by name. And when Moses said, show me now your glory, or when the Lord says, show me now your glory, so anyway, he says, show me your glory, right? Yeah, so Moses says, show me now your glory. God says, I will let my goodness pass before you, right? So I will proclaim, I will tell you my true name. And when I wish to favor you, I will favor. When I wish to have compassion, I will have compassion. You will not see my face, because if you do, it's going to kill you, right? But there is a place with me, and you shall stand on the rock. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to have our little face-to-face meetings, except not exactly, because you can't look at my face or it'll kill you. So what's going to happen instead is I'm going to have you stand behind this rock, and I'm going to cover your eyes. And when I lift my hands from your eyes, you'll then see my back. So that way you can see me, but not see my face. That's the best I can do, Moses, but wow. Talk about this level of closeness. This is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Fifth portion, chapter 34. Verse 1. And the Lord said to Moses, hew for yourself 2 stone tablets like the first ones, and I will inscribe upon the tablets the words that were on the first tablets which you broke. Be prepared for morning, and in the morning you shall ascend Mount Sinai, and stand before me there on the top of the mountain. No one shall ascend with you, neither shall anyone be seen anywhere on the mountain, neither shall the sheep and the cattle graze facing that mountain. So he, Moses, hewed 2 stone tablets like the first ones, and Moses arose early in the morning and ascended Mount Sinai, as the Lord had commanded him. And he took 2 stone tablets in his hand. And the Lord descended in the cloud and stood with him there. And he called out in the name of the Lord. And the Lord passed before him and proclaimed, Lord, Lord, benevolent God, who is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, and abundant in loving kindness and truth. preserving loving kindness for thousands, forgiving iniquity and rebellion and sin. Yet he does not completely clear of sin. He visits the iniquity of parents on children and children's children to the third and fourth generations. And Moses hastened, bowed his head to the ground, and prostrated himself, and said, If I have now found favor in your eyes, O Lord, let the Lord go now in our midst, even if they are a stiff-necked people, and you shall forgive our iniquity and our sin, and thus secure us as your possession. So once again, Moses has played everything right, and he has been forgiven, or he seeks a way to be forgiven. Even though the Lord exacts vengeance or punishment across generations, Moses manages to beg and secure forgiveness, and we're still going to be your people, all of us. Keep in mind, Moses played everything right. Previously, he received these holy tablets, and he was angry enough to smash them, but also by smashing them, he protected them from being desecrated by the presence of an unholy people. So now we see more. You're getting a new set of tablets, right? Even though you destroyed the first ones, clearly the fact that you did so found favor in my eyes because I'm going to give you a new set. Great. Awesome. And because Moses was so crafty and brilliant, and even though they're stiff-necked people, even though they're stubborn, you please let the Lord still be among us, and you shall forgive our iniquity and our sin, and thus secure us as your possession. So, my Lord, you are the one who does not completely clear people of sin, but please, for your chosen people, come with us anyway. Sixth portion, chapter 34, verse 10. And he said, Behold, I will form a covenant in the presence of all your people. I will make distinctions such as have not been created upon all the earth and among all the nations. And all the people in whose midst you are shall see the work of the Lord, how awe-inspiring it is, which I will perform with you. Keep carefully what I am commanding you today. Lo, I will drive out from before you the Amorites and the Canaanites, the Hittites and the Perizzites, the Hivites and the Jebusites. Beware lest you form a covenant with the inhabitants of the land into which you are coming, lest it become a snare in your midst. But you shall demolish their altars, shatter their monuments, and cut down their sacred trees. For you shall not prostrate yourself before another god, because the Lord, whose name is Jealous One, is a jealous God. Lest you form a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and the Gentiles go astray after their gods, and they offer sacrifices to their gods, and they invite you, and you eat of their slaughtering. And you take of their daughters for your sons, then their daughters will go astray after the gods, and lead your sons astray after their gods. You shall not make molten gods for yourself. The festival of unleavened cakes you shall keep. 7 days you shall eat unleavened cakes, which I have commanded you at the appointed meeting of time of the month of spring. For in the month of spring you went out of Egypt. All that opens the womb is mine, and all your livestock that bears a male, by the emergence of ox or lamb. And a firstborn donkey you shall redeem it with a lamb. If you do not redeem it, you shall decapitate it. Every firstborn of your sons you shall redeem, and they shall not appear before me empty-handed. 6 days you may work, and on the 7th day you shall rest. In plowing and in harvest you shall rest. And you shall make for yourself a festival of weeks, the first of the wheat harvest, and the festival of the ingathering at the turn of the year. 3 times during the year shall all your males appear directly before the Master, the Lord, the God of Israel. When I drive out nations from before you, and I widen your border, no one will covet your land when you go up to appear before the Lord your God 3 times each year. You shall not slaughter or sprinkle the blood of my sacrifice with leaven, and the offering of the Passover feast shall not remain overnight until morning. The choicest of the first of your soil you shall bring to the house of the Lord your God. You shall not cook a kid in its mother's milk. Okay, so wrapping up the 6th portion here. First up, after everything Moses has said and done, and all the things they've been through together, the Lord says, I will form a covenant in the presence of all your people. And I will make distinctions based on what you were just asking me about how to make us stand out, right, as your people. I'm going to make these distinctions, and it's going to be amazing. So first up, I'm going to drive out those people that are in the land and give the land to you. Don't you dare form a covenant with the inhabitants of the land in which you are coming, lest it become a snare in your midst. Now, interestingly, this is significant, right? So he's driving out the Amorites, Canaanites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. But it also says that there will be inhabitants, right? So in other words, those specific tribes are being driven out, but there will be other people who dwell there. That's not necessarily who are going to be driven out. So he's only driving out those particular tribes. Now, with that being said, don't form a covenant with them, lest it become a snare in your midst. Demolish their altars, shatter their monuments, cut down their sacred trees, right? So basically, this is all to prevent them from straying and worshiping another people's gods. Don't take offerings for, like, if they have a meal offering in the name of, like, let's say they have a holy feast in the name of their gods, and you partake in it, you are now committing that sin also. So don't you dare form a covenant. Don't eat of their meal offerings, because then you're going to be sinning. Don't marry your daughters or your sons to their daughters, because their daughters are going to want to go back to the way of their fathers, and then your sons are going to follow the daughters, and we're going to ruin the entire thing. So in other words, don't intermarry with foreign women. You shall not make molten gods for yourself. Yeah, lesson learned, right? So Passover, the festival of unleavened cakes, we just get the details on that, when it's going to be kept. All that opens the womb is mine, right? So all things that are born, and all the livestock that bears a male. So, basically, firstborn donkey can be redeemed with a lamb, and if you don't redeem it, decapitate it. Every firstborn son shall be redeemed. They shall not appear before me empty-handed. So essentially, we talked about this earlier, right? The redeeming of the people, it was half a shekel. So we can assume that that's the cost of the redemption there. It could be the half a shekel, or there is an animal quantity that they must do. Keeping the Sabbath day, right? 6 days work, seventh day rest. Festival of weeks, as well as the times that they must all appear before the Lord. So three great holidays. And then once it's time, and I've given you the land, those special days, nobody's going to covet your land. So basically, you're going to be safe in those times. No one's going to bother even messing with your land. I'm going to protect you. Don't sprinkle the blood of my sacrifice with leaven, and the offering of the Passover feast shall not remain overnight. So in other words, don't leave it till morning. Make sure it's all consumed. The choicest of the first of your soil, in other words, the best of your first harvest, comes to me. And lastly, you shall not cook a kid in its mother's milk. This is the great commandment related to milk and meat. A lot of people... So I've always interpreted this my own way. It's quite literal. You shall not cook a kid in its mother's milk. So in other words, you're living on the farm, you've got milk, right, that you got from the mother of an animal. Then you take and slaughter that animal. Don't cook it in the milk of the same mother. A lot of people interpret that to be all milk and meat. I've always just interpreted it to be literally don't mix the kid in its mother's milk. I understand if you don't know where the food is sourced from, it's hard to do that. But that's always been my understanding. My interpretation of that is literal. And so, don't take a chance of mixing the two. It's very sad. In any case, humanity, right? Being humane. Don't cook a kid in its mother's milk. It's very straightforward. All right, seventh portion. Chapter 34, verse 27. The Lord said to Moses, Inscribe these words for yourself, for according to these words I have formed a covenant with you and with Israel. He was there with the Lord for 40 days and 40 nights. He ate no bread and drank no water. And he inscribed upon the tablets the word of the covenant, the 10 commandments. And it came to pass when Moses descended from Mount Sinai, and the 2 tablets of the testimony were in Moses' hand when he descended from the mountain, and Moses did not know that the skin of his face had become radiant while he had spoken with him. That Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moses, and behold, the skin of his face had become radiant, and they were afraid to come near him. But Moses called to them, and Aaron and all the princes of the community returned to him, and Moses would speak to them. Afterwards, all the children of Israel would draw near, and he would command them everything that the Lord had spoken with him on Mount Sinai. When Moses had finished speaking with them, he placed a covering over his face. When Moses would come before the Lord to speak with him, he would remove the covering until he left. Then he would leave and speak to the children of Israel what he would be commanded. The children of Israel would see Moses' face, that the skin of Moses had become radiant, and then Moses would replace the covering over his face until he would again come to speak with him, as in speak with the Lord. So that's the end of the seventh and final portion. The key takeaway here is that Moses gets this covenant formed, right? And he says, inscribe these words for yourself. According to these words, I formed a covenant with you and with Israel. And he stays up there for 40 days, and he basically does not eat, does not drink. He does exactly what he's told. 10 commandments are carved onto the tablet. And then when he comes down, not only does he bring these 10 commandments, but his face is now glowing. He is radiant. His skin shines with brightness, holy light, because he had been face to face with the Almighty. This is what has happened because of everything and Moses' experiences. He has now got a permanent light that is so bright it actually scared everybody. Then he called them back and they're like, oh, okay, it's Moses. But when he goes and talks to God, he has to cover his face now because it's so bright. People can't even look at him. When he talks to God, he lifts the veil and they speak face to face. Well, relatively. He faces God without seeing God's face so he doesn't get killed, but then he puts the face back, or the veil back down, and he goes back and forth with this, right? So when he finishes, he comes and he speaks with the radiance of God on his face, talks to the people, finishes sharing what was said, then he covers his face again, and it doesn't show his face again until he gets back up to speaking with God. So here we have how things are from now on. Moses has this glowing, radiant face of holiness. That is the blessing that essentially comes with sealing this covenant. Moses is now literally radiant with holy light, and people can't even look upon him. He's become so holy. He is the definition of enlightened. In any case, that is also proof of Moses' experiences, that he glows so brilliantly and radiantly. That's all for now. That's the end of this week's portion. Thanks for listening. There's been quite a lot here. That is the conclusion of the portion Ki Tisa. But with that in mind, it's very interesting to see the rise and fall of the people. On one hand, Moses is receiving this incredibly holy thing. On the other hand, the people start sinning without him there to look over him. We see Aaron and Aaron's nature and what he does to sort of punish his people by letting them fall into sin instead of stopping them, right? Because of fear of being attacked. While Moses is fearless and he says, no, I'll put them down because that's what needs to happen. And also fearless enough to stand up and say, God, don't do it. Don't punish them. Don't destroy them. And ultimately, the great result is that he forms an even greater covenant because all the things Moses has done, he has found favor in the eyes of the Lord, and he's been elevated to a whole new level of holiness. Very powerful. Well, that's all for now. Thanks for listening. I hope you found it informative. Remember to follow those commandments as closely as you can. But aside from that, I hope you had a great time. I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you next time. Until then, this has been Shmuel Moshe with the Weekly Parashahcast. Thank you for tuning in. Baruch Hashem.